Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us. K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
Hello and welcome to another edition of C2C Rankem. Yes, we are on a Monday. Tuesday's family day for me. Work stuff going on, so we'll do a Monday show. And I got my host, Primetime Oos, Tim Hendricks. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm starting to think we're going to have problems with the internet, but other than that, it seemed good.
Yeah. If we do have problems, forgive us. It is technology. So, but today, me and Tim came up with a very interesting list. We might do more of these. I don't know how we could, but we'll have to think of something. It's the what if categories: sports, history, TV, music, stuff like that. What if this happened or didn't happen? It's kind of the way I went. I don't know how Tim went, but follow along. Throw out your what ifs if you're watching. So, Tim, why don't we start with your favorite category? Let's go history. You're the history guy, so let's start off history. I don't know. We could get a couple. I don't know. I mean, because it's not really an outline of what we're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of, with this. I think we're going to be. It might be a little more difficult. I'm looking at it where if we have one or two, I think we'll be absolutely lucky.
Yeah, I think this will probably be our worst percentage, kind of like the Oakland A's. So all right, go with number 5.
I know this race happened well before we were born. It was something that John F. Kennedy had really wanted to do, and he wanted to reach the moon, and he wanted to be the first. He wanted the United States to be the first people to reach the moon. And my thought is, what happens if the Soviet Union had gotten to the moon before we did?
Oh, that's a good one. That is a good one. I like that one. Yeah. Who knows? I mean, you know, we got a couple of those. We're gonna have a lot of those what ifs. For me, number 5. I know this is gonna hit home to a lot of people watching, especially me and Tim. What if 9/11 did not happen? Where would we be sitting at? I mean, what if and I hate to say this, but I saw a documentary, and I feel bad for the one receptionist or rep that was checking in the ticket, because he said he had a very gut feeling that he should not have let a certain passenger on, and he did, and it was one of the passengers that started the whole thing. So, but yeah, 9/11. You're number 4.
That's a good one. I didn't even think of that, and then I'm looking at the rest of mine going, holy smokes. We've had a lot of presidents assassinated in the United States, and the easy one would be what happens if John F. Kennedy hadn't been assassinated. I went the different way. What happened? What would have happened if Abraham Lincoln hadn't been assassinated? We were just, I think at that point we had just gotten basically done with the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were getting ready to be in the Age of Enlightenment with what of the American Age of Enlightenment, and I think he would have been a perfect person. I think he would have done a lot of things. I think he would have been what FDR was. I think he would have been elected more than three times. I know he was only elected twice, but I think with the way he was, with the power that man had, the confidence that he had with just the North, I think we could have gone a lot further.
Okay. No, that is a really good one. I like that. Honest Abe, yeah. My number 4, I'm gonna go with a new way of travel could have been from going from the States to where Tim's at over in Italy, kind of. And what if the Titanic didn't sink? I mean, what kind of travels could we have, done? Yeah, it would have taken, how long to get from the U.S. to over there, but through water. But I mean, just think of the, travels that could have happened.
I honestly thought of that one, and I'm thinking that's not bad considering the following year the Lusitania sinks. Basically,
Yeah.
the sister of the Titan, sister ship of the Titanic.
Yep, exactly.
That's absolutely amazing. I thought of that one.
Well, and then and then the recent news, we just had that submarine,
Right.
As they're going down to look at the Titanic explode or whatever happened. So,
right.
Number 3, Tim.
Number 3, I think this one hits a little more a lot home to the parents of our generation. And it's amazing. I know it would hit home to a lot of my family, a lot of people. It was probably one of the most hated wars in the United States at the time. What would happen if the United States had won Vietnam? I instead of having to basically take that L, take it, and what would have happened? What type of would we have had to walk our way into World War III with possibility of being right on the doorstep of China? Would North Korea be as powerful as they are because we're sitting right there? I don't. There's a lot of things back in the 70s because most people don't understand that Vietnam ended in 75. Mm-hmm. But if we hadn't had to run away from Vietnam, would that area be destabilized? Would that area be what it is today?
No, that's a good one. I like that one very much. Yeah. My number 3, possibly one of the greatest speeches, gatherings of all time. Got a day named after him. A lot of streets named after him. What if the Martin Luther King speech did not happen? Where would we be sitting with the races, the interaction, and you can probably tie that into Rosa Parks sitting at the back of the bus, not wanting to move.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's good. That one, I wasn't expecting that either. That's amazing.
Yeah. All right, you're number 2.
My number 2 deals a lot with World War II. I look at it and think if 2 certain events didn't happen, does World War II happen? One for the United States and one just completely. My number 2 is what happens if Pearl Harbor never happens? Does the United States not get into World War II? I think eventually, I don't think we ever get into the Pacific. I honestly think that we would eventually have gotten into World War II in Europe. Mm-hmm. But it's just so difficult to think, if Pearl Harbor, a blatant slap in the face along the lines of 9/11, you look at that and go, what happens if Pearl Harbor never happened? It was basically at that time, Hawaii wasn't even a state. Hawaii was just a naval base. And it's crazy to think that it's because of the Japanese that we seriously get deep into World War II.
Yep. Well, I get that. My number 2, I know we still do this a lot, and we probably got set back because of this. And I believe this happened in 89 in January. And that's what if the shuttle Challenger did not explode on liftoff. I remember sitting in class watching that. My teacher burst into tears. Yeah, we turned it off right away, even though it was, like after the shock factor. But yeah, what if, probably set us back some time. I know some people still believe that there's going to be life out there, to travel back and forth to, but yeah, the Challenger. You're number one.
My number one. A lot of people don't realize that the Nazi Party didn't succeed right away. It's weird because the Nazi Party with Hess and Goebbels and Goebbels and Hess loved Hitler because Hitler was such a wonderful mouthpiece. He knew how to talk. If Hitler wasn't an insane, crazy man, he'd have been a perfect wrestling manager. The man knows how to talk. He knows how to sell. What if the Nazi Party didn't continue after its initial failure? Does all of a sudden Germany, World War II doesn't happen. At that point, World War II is dead in the water. Honestly, because Goebbels wasn't a talker, Hess wasn't a talker, none of them talked, and it's just Himmler wasn't a talker.
Mm-hmm.
If Hitler failed and Hitler didn't have the ambition, World War II never happened.
Yeah, no, that's totally right. My number one, because of this guy, we get to do stuff like this, But what if Christopher Columbus never sailed and found America? We're all sitting over in France and stuff, don't know there's another part of the world out there. So, yeah, that's a big one there. So, yeah, like we said, it's probably going to be one of those 0 for Oakland A's type performances, and we're 0 for 5 on that one. Some good ones, don't get me wrong, definitely good ones. So, let's move over to let's go over to TV. We like TV. So, again, this is our what if I don't, like I said, I went with what if these shows were made now or back then, so I will start first. My number 5, I like Full House. I think Tim does too. I have a DVD set that has a pilot on there, and I can't think of who was first casted as Danny Tanner, but what if Bob Saget was not Danny Tanner? Do we know who Bob Saget is? Does Full House go as long as it did? That cast was tight. So I'm trying to think of who the original cast was for Bob Saget, or for Danny Tanner.
I can't even remember either, to be honest. When you said that, Bob Saget, if people go up, and it's strange that Bob Saget got cast as Danny Tanner. When you go and look at his stand-up comedian, his stand-up stuff, he is not Danny Tanner, and he will tell you he's not Danny Tanner. It's hilarious to see that. I'm a Walking Dead fan. I know you're not a Walking Dead fan. And my biggest knock on The Walking Dead was that they strayed so far away from the comics that it started not looking like The Walking Dead of the comic books. My big thing is, what if The Walking Dead had stayed true to the comics? If it had stayed true to the comics, would it have lasted longer than 11 seasons? Because the storyline for The Walking Dead was brilliant. People that they kept alive are dead in the series. People that are dead in the series are kept alive. It's amazing. I don't know if The Walking Dead would be as big. I'm not sure, but that one always confused me. Like, why did they stray away from the comic book so much?
No, that is definitely a good one. One of many shows I grew up watching. And matter of fact, I just saw something that made me think of this show. What if Good Times was made now instead of back in the day? Exactly. Never would happen. If it would happen, it wouldn't be the way it was. So would it be as good?
And would we have gotten Janet Jackson?
No, I think I mean, you're probably right, but I think we would have got Janet somewhere down the road. But speaking of going back to Danny Tanner, John Posey was originally cast as
Ooh,
the pilot. John Posey? I don't
never
know.
heard of it.
Yeah, he was the original one that was supposed to be Danny Tanner.
Wow.
So, all right, you're number 4.
I don't know. Have you watched Sons of Anarchy? I'm
Clips here and there.
I've seen stuff here and there, and I bring up Sons of Anarchy, and you go talk you ask people who watch Sons of Anarchy. I've watched the series, and it's not my favorite. But they always come back to this. One of the saddest episodes, probably in all of TV, is when Opie is basically killed in prison. What happens if Opie hadn't died in Sons of Anarchy? What would have changed? What would have happened with Sam Crow? What would have changed the story? How much would it have changed?
Oh, that's a good one. Another classic that's still showing today, so people like it today, but I think it would be a different version of it if it was made today. And that's the Golden Girls. What if the Golden Girls were made, in recent years? Probably 2010-ish to now. The way, I don't know if it'd be as funny or, one who would be casted. So you're number 3.
My number 3, and I didn't watch much of this. My wife loves this show. I don't. It's back in the day, yeah. Even in Italy, they get American TV shows, and they get it, and some of them are in English. And she watched a lot of stuff. But my wife is a big X-Files fan, huge X-Files fan, loves it. And when I did the homework for this, I was shocked to find out that Ann Anderson was up for the role of Scully. Originally had the first role of Scully, was first given the role, and it's not Gillian. The one that played Scully wasn't the first person to be placed in the role of Scully. It was, and you are going to laugh when I found this out. What happens? What if Pamela Anderson had accepted the role of Dana Scully in X-Files instead of Gillian Anderson because Pamela Anderson was the first person they had hired for Dana Scully?
Wow. Yeah, that was on. That came on after, or was that before Baywatch?
Same time.
About the same time. Okay, so we don't get Baywatch.
About Baywatch. I think it was before Tool Time, where she showed up on Tool Time.
Yeah.
Before Home Improvement.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And then Baywatch. She got Baywatch after Home Improvement.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Another one I kind of recall watching this show growing up, but got me thinking because of how the plot was and the two characters that were the main characters. And Tim, you'll probably laugh, but what if Bosom Buzzies were made now with Tom Hanks and I can't think of the little guy now. I just had his name in my head.
Peter Scolari.
Yeah. What if that was made now, or even because it was made mid 80s? What if it was made back in the 60s? When TV first came out.
In the 60s, it would have failed.
Yeah.
I think if it were played now,
Yeah.
I think it'd be a huge success. I think it'd be big.
But yeah, exactly. That I mean, of course, back then, I mean, you get the Tom Hanks character who, maybe we don't know who Tom Hanks is because of this movie if it wasn't made.
Exactly.
So, all right, you're number 1, or you're number 2. I'm sorry.
My number 2, probably one of the biggest TV shows in history. Put a lot of people on the map. Put Jerry Seinfeld on the map. Put Jason Alexander on the map.
Oh, you want
put Michael. I can't remember his name, and he's not the question. He's not the person of my Michael Richards. And then Julie Louis Dreyfus. But did you know that Danny DeVito was originally cast as George Costanza in Seinfeld. If
Oh,
Danny
that would not have
DeVito
worked. No.
if Danny DeVito would have accepted it, would we have ever seen Jason Alexander ever? Do we get Duckman? Do we get anything that Jason Alexander does after that? Because at that point, Danny DeVito would have played George Costanza.
Wow. No, that yeah. I mean, I'm not a big Steinfeld fan, but yeah, I don't know if that would have worked. I mean, yeah, I don't know. You're right though. I mean, so here's another TV classic that, between people I've talked to, always talk about, what this show was made now or whatever. All in the Family. What if that was made now? Exactly.
Nope.
Tim is, it probably would, but it wouldn't have the comedy feel. I don't want to get too racist about it, but the punchlines and the borderline, you know, comics. So you're number one.
My number one. I love the show. Absolutely love the show. And when they canceled the show on Netflix, this is the one that I don't think a lot of people who watch Netflix actually have forgiven Netflix for. My wife wanted to start watching this series, so we're watching the series, knowing full well that after 2 seasons they canceled this series while it was at its height. I get that you want, like John Elway, if you want to go out on top, you want to win a championship, but you left so many things wide open. What if Mindhunter hadn't been canceled on Netflix after 2 seasons?
Yeah, that does stink when they do that. Never seen it, but they've left so many things open. You cancel the season, it's just like, what happened? I mean,
Exactly.
So that's our little TV what ifs. Let's go into music. I kind of interested to see which way you went music wise. So let's start with your number 5 there. Music's what ifs.
I honestly think we might have one. I think we might have one, if not 2. Because so far we're 0 for 10, and right now
we're 10. We're betting Miguel Sano's type numbers here.
We're in double A baseball right now.
Hanging
this
out.
This is how bad we are.
We might have a couple.
We might have a couple. My mom's much like your aunt, and a lot of people. It's hilarious when you realize August 15th. When at the moment you say August 15th, 1977, people know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
What happened. Most of those people can tell you where they were.
Yep.
It's funny because it's my uncle's birthday. My Uncle Joe's birthday is August 15th. He was not born in 1977, but that would have been the same year my brother was born. But the question always remains: what if Elvis Presley hadn't died on August 15th, 1977?
That is honestly, that would have been probably my 6th one, But yeah, exactly. I mean, his music's still a little strong today, and yeah. My number 5 is a young artist, died very young. What if Jimmy Morrison at 27 didn't die? Where are the Doors at? Where's is he solo by now? I mean,
Yeah, he died. He's part of the 27 Club.
Yep.
God.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. I saw that one as I was doing my homework for this for later on in the show. Yeah. That's
all right. You're number 4.
My number 4. I might be completely wrong. I know you're a Darius Rucker fan.
Yep.
Okay, what if Darius Rucker had never gone solo? What if Darius Rucker and Hootie and the Blowfish stayed together? Do they cross the country like he did?
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I mean, their songs weren't, they weren't really hip hop or whatever, but they weren't really country. So yeah, I could see, that, and who knows why they split up, why he went, solo. I mean, I know he wanted to
Right.
do country if you really research him, but maybe that was the reason why. I don't know, but yeah, you never know. My number four, this guy brought out a lot of hits, in the 80s, 90s, before his passing. Do we get those hits now if he sticks with his brothers? I mean, what if Michael Jackson doesn't lead the Jackson 5? I mean, do we get Thriller? Do we get a different version of Thriller? Do we get a different version of Beat It? All those great songs that Michael Jackson made. So, you're number 3.
My number 3. You went with one great. I went with different direction with greatness.
Okay.
I've already had Elvis, so I've already dealt with greatness once on my list. I figure why not add greatness again at number 3. People will argue. I'm not one of these people. People will arguably say they're the greatest band of all time. I'm a Rolling Stones fan more than I am a Beatles fan. We see how long that the Rolling Stones have lasted in our entirety, in our lifetime, because they've been together ever since we've been alive.
Yep.
But what happens if the Beatles never broke up?
No kidding. That, yeah, exactly. My number 3. I've seen the movie that this lady was made many, many times. And when we brought up this list, this was one of the first names that jumped to my brain. And one, if the movie wasn't made, do we get Jennifer Lopez? One. But two, what happens if Selena doesn't die? Doesn't get the crazy uh, president of a fan club that got jealous or whatever. I mean, just in that short amount of time. I mean,
That's crazy.
yeah. You're number 2.
My number 2. This is the one that everybody doesn't. It's kind of shocking, and the reasoning why this man, he's now a man, is now an actor, but why he wasn't part of the band, and they had to replace him with Joey McIntyre, which is funny because they wanted a clean, wholesome image.
Yep.
And when you realize that Mark Wahlberg went to jail because he was up for attempted murder, if I'm not mistaken. But what happens if Joey McIntyre doesn't go to New Kids on the Block, and what happens if it was Mark Wahlberg?
And the thing is he still is popular in movies and stuff. I mean, but yeah, who knows? So being that we're music, I mean, we got to talk about one of possibly, as they call it, the day music died. I mean, what if we never got the helicopter crash that killed Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper? And I believe there was supposed to be a fourth, but they couldn't fit it on there, right? There was a fourth.
It was Richie. There was a fourth one, and what happened was it was supposed to be Johnny Cash. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was supposed to be Johnny Cash, and Johnny Cash rather have taken the boss. Yep. I think was the thing.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. It was one of the guys elected. No, I'll just take the bus. You guys can, take the plane. But yeah, so you're number 1.
Well, Brandon, you're gonna love to hear these words.
We did it.
It's not C2C unless you snipe somebody.
Uh-oh.
My number 1 is, what if Michael Jackson never left the Jackson 5? What do we get?
Oh, exactly. I mean, do we get the hits that Michael Jackson did? Did we get them in a different version, do we not get him at all? I mean, I hate to say that his ego got the best of him, but it didn't. But if he did have the ego, if he just kept rolling with what they were doing,
exactly.
So my number one, matter of fact, I actually saw this shirt the other day at work, which another reason kind of came up to me. It was right at the beginning. I don't know the exact year, early 90s, mid 90s, when this guy passed away just after recording, I think, one album. What if Nirvana, Kurt Cobain doesn't die? Where is that? I mean, just think of the legacy they have now. People are still wearing their stuff, listening. But if that's the case, I think it was mid 90s. You're looking 20-some years, and you're still seeing Nirvana shirts up and popping up.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
All right. Exactly. I know. I saw it. I was just like amazed. The guy was our age, but still.
Right.
All right. So let's get into a little sports. We'll jump into movies and later, and of course our deaths.
And WWE.
You
did WWE.
So let's get into what? Yeah, I did WWE. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So we'll do sports first. We just kind of all the sports together. We didn't break it down. We may do a breakdown on a different episode, but I will start with number 5 in sports. And again, we could get a couple here. We've had one so far, so we're still hanging in that, double A. We're going to send you down to single A here shortly. We could get one, possibly two, depending on which way we go. There's a lot of what ifs in sports. There's always a what if. My number 5 is what if Mike Holmgren does not bring Brett Favre with him to Green Bay? Do we get the Iron Man streak? Do we get Brett Favre? Do we get whatever comes from it? Granted, he wasn't sitting behind anybody in Atlanta that would have kept him.
At Atlanta, he was sitting behind Chris Miller, I think, at that point.
I think Chris Miller. Yep, I think that was the case.
But Jerry, I think if I'm not if I heard the story right, that I think the Falcons were never going to use Brett Favre. Jerry Glanville didn't believe in Brett Favre, and yet you drafted him in the late first or early second, and you don't use this guy. Yeah, it's kind of strange.
I guarantee you Glanville's kicking himself right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. You're number 5.
My number 5. I wasn't a Mamba fan. I'm not a Kobe fan. I have the utmost respect for Kobe Bryant.
Yep.
But what would have happened if Kobe Bryant had been traded when he had requested to be traded to the Chicago Bulls?
Ooh. Yeah. That would have been.
It's crazy to think. Yeah, he already been traded once in his life because he didn't want to play for the Charlotte Hornets. Yep. Why? That
was end of Jordan's career too, right? That he wanted to be traded, or was that after Jordan?
It was near the end of Jordan's career in Chicago when he wanted to be
see a backcourt with them two, and then small forward Scottie Pippen.
God, no, Scottie at that time I think was in Houston.
Okay. I thought they split up when Jordan went to retire for the second time. So
yeah, I couldn't remember. Yeah. Everybody's got to remember Jordan. Everybody got to remember Jordan retired 3 times.
Yeah, that kind of is true. Yeah. So, all right, number 4, going to pull out a little homer pick here because we talk about this quite a bit on other shows, especially around baseball season, World Series time. And it's been documented many times that there would have been a fight at the mound if this would have happened. But what if Tom Kelly would have pulled Jack Morris out of Game 7 of the 91 World Series?
We
don't get the Game 7.
No, Tom Kelly would have been fired after Game 6.
But yeah, Morris said if he came out there, he was going to fight him. He was not.
I would have loved to. I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is now is, I mean, if you got a guy like Jack Morris now, I mean, you're not getting 7, 8, 9 innings, 10 innings, So, I mean, one, if Jack Morris pitched now, you're not getting it. But yeah, that would have been something definitely. And honestly, I don't think it would have been interesting to see how that game ended because Twins probably didn't win it. I mean, you got a couple of historic events in there. You got the Puckett home run in Game 6, which brought Game 7, and then you always got Ken Herbeck pulling off Ron Gant at first base, which he did pull him off. I mean, that could have been a game changer right there. So,
right.
All right, you're number 4.
I like to bring this one up because this is the one. Remember, I think I said it in our chat. I think I have to apologize to Crispy for this, but I think Crispy would understand, and I think he would agree with me on this thing. And this would affect your team as well. Back in, what was it, 90 or 1980, 1989, the Dallas Cowboys, I believe, had the number 1 draft pick in the NFL draft, if I'm not mistaken. Instead of drafting, they had the number. I believe they had the number 1 draft pick. I know they took Troy Aikman.
Okay.
And you've got a Heisman Trophy winner that basically gets picked 5th in that draft, if I'm not mistaken. And everybody's talking about, Emmitt Smith this and Emmitt Smith that. Emmitt Smith's not the person I'm talking about. If the Dallas Cowboys just go up the road to Oklahoma State, draft Barry Sanders as your number 1 draft pick.
Oh, jeez.
You put him behind the Dallas Cowboy offensive line. First of all, Minnesota does not trade for Herschel Walker.
Yeah.
They don't draft Troy Aikman. At that point, you really didn't need to. I think later, in 90, they draft Steve. I can't remember his name. Steve Walsh out of Miami. All of a sudden, it's like, Barry Sanders this, Barry Sanders. He lasted 9 years. Problem is, I think Barry Sanders behind the Dallas Cowboys line lasts 15 years, destroys Walter Payton's record. And at this point, everybody's talking about Dallas being the team of the decade. No, Dallas would have maybe supplanted Green Bay. The Green Bay Packers as the best team in NFL history. I'll say it right now.
That's a good one. And there's another guy that if they didn't want to go with Troy Aikman or Barry Sanders, you look a couple more picks down there. There's your favorite guy, Primetime, sitting there. The dual threat guy too. So, yeah, that's a good one. My number 3, kind of talk about greatness, and there's always the debate, the GOAT, and what he's done, and what if Michael Jordan doesn't retire in between the 2 3-peats? I mean, you got to give him 8, 9 in a row. I mean,
you're giving him
at least.
You're giving him at least 8.
At least. I mean, not realistically, you probably go 6. Maybe some people try to leave. But yeah, what if Jordan doesn't retire early? What Bulls iconically were the greatest team ever. So you're number 2.
My number 3.
I'm sorry.
My number 3. I think of this person who had his career shortened in 2 sports, and think, what if he only did 1? Be honest. I'm thinking, what happens if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers didn't screw up and wreck the eligibility of one Vincent Edward Jackson out of Auburn? We all know him as Bo. What if they didn't screw up his eligibility? Now, he plays now. If he plays full-time sports, does he play? Because that was the problem. He got screwed on his eligibility. He would have probably played for Tampa if he hadn't had his eligibility screwed, and he wouldn't have gone to Kansas City. What happens if Bo Jackson? I don't care even if he played for Oakland or Los Angeles or Tampa or Kansas City. But what happens? What would have happened if Bo Jackson would have just played one sport?
What sport? I mean, he was dominant.
Doesn't matter.
I mean,
he was an all-star in both sports. It doesn't
exactly.
matter.
And the thing is, I think J-Max brought it up, and I think both of us can agree. He should be in the Hall of Fame for both.
Oh, yes, he should be, without a question. He's a once-in-a-generation talent.
Yep. Well, yep. Now, my number 2, you kind of alluded with your number 4, I believe it was. And, it set the Vikings back quite a bit. But, what if they don't make that Herschel Walker trade? I mean, how good could the Vikings have been? I mean, granted, yeah, everybody would be like, oh, they'll still choke it. They probably would have. But, one, you don't get the Dallas Cowboys dynasty in the 90s without that Herschel Walker trade. And the Vikings get those pieces and, maybe they put it together. Maybe they don't. Maybe we're talking about a a Super Bowl win, maybe a couple appearances. It's just the what ifs. And, I mean, Herschel Walker only had one good game in Minnesota. That was against Green Bay when he lost his damn shoe.
Yep.
And then he ends up going back to Dallas
Going back to
at his career. So Vikings got nothing out of that deal.
Yeah, they got double jobbed.
Yeah, so you're number 2.
My number 2, this is not C2C unless we are talking about sniping other people. My number 2 is your number 4. What happens if Michael Jordan hadn't retired the first time?
Yep.
We're talking about at least 6 in a row at this point because I think he was gone. What he retired for 2 years, and then came back.
I think it was 2.5 years. I think it was.
Well, and then he came back just before the playoffs.
Yeah, because didn't Houston go 2 in a row, or they go 3 in a row? Was it?
It was. I think it was. Houston went 2 in a row before. That was before Drexler had gotten there. Drexler and Barkley had gotten there. I think San Antonio had won one in there as well.
Okay, yeah.
I think so.
Exactly.
That would have been a good series. The Houston, the back-to-back that Houston had playing against a Jordan, a triplets Jordan. Yeah. I think we're talking about an amazing time in basketball.
Oh yeah, exactly. So my number 1, we bring it up every so often, especially I think we brought it up this past week on deck or in our chats. What if MLB did not have the 94 strike? You got the Expos that were on a roll. I think you had Tony Gwynn batting near 400 or over 400 at the time.
He was over 400 at the time.
I think it was over 400. I mean, granted, yeah, then you don't get the home run derby that McGuire and Sosa came back in. But I mean, everybody talks. Do we still have the Expos? I mean, after that year,
well, the Expos. I think at that point, the Expos. It was what was it? They were expecting the Expos and the Phillies to be in the NL Championship Series.
Yeah.
That would have been a hell of a series. I think the NL series would have been a whole lot better than the World Series.
Oh yeah. I mean, but I mean, Expos. I think we're on pace to crush
Seattle's number,
most wins. Yeah. Well, Well, then we don't even talk Seattle's big number, but
yeah.
I mean, just looking at the standings right now of that, you had the Expos at 74 and 40.
74
leading the. I mean, you still had the mighty Yankees at 70, the White Sox at 67, 46, the Rangers up there. But yeah, I mean, what could have been with the 94 season? So, all right, you're number 1.
My number 1. It's a little bit yours. You had your little bit of a homer pick. I've got mine. I think this would have truly changed the face of one organization, if not two organizations in the landscape of the NFL. It gets talked about all the time. Every time we talk about the greatest draft in the NFL, that's the 1983 NFL draft. And John Elway always talking about why he didn't want to be Baltimore Colt. And we as Colts fans, we all understood it because this guy couldn't coach his way out of a wet paper bag to begin with. But what happens if Frank Kush was not the head coach of the Baltimore Colts? If Frank Kush is not the head coach of the Baltimore Colts, I honestly believe John Elway would have been a Colt. John Elway would have taken us to 2 Super Bowls at the time. Do we leave Baltimore for Indianapolis? It's just because a lot of things hinged on that draft.
Yeah, that Colts, you're right. I mean, just a minor move, just like that. I mean, I was just kind of looking over some of the 94 season stats. Yeah, Tony Gwynn was at 394 when the strike happened. You had Maddox at about 8 wins, it looks like. I mean, at the time. Yeah, it was just, you just look at the names on there, just ridiculous what that season could have been. So, all right, so that's sports. Let's jump over to movies. Let's go back to movies for a little bit. And we got 2 left after that. So, Tim, let's start with your number 5.
In movies. We're in movies, right? I want to double check.
Movies. Yep, we're going to go movies.
All right. I believe you've watched this movie. I would think so. You've watched Gladiator, right? The Russell Crowe movie, Gladiator.
Yeah, I've seen some of it. Yep.
I didn't realize this until I started doing my homework for this show. I think a lot of these things, I think 4 out of the 5 I didn't know at the time. I knew of 1. But what if Mel Gibson had taken the role that was played by Russell Crowe?
Yep. That's a good one. Because that came out the same time as, or a little bit after Braveheart or before Braveheart?
After
you wouldn't have got Mel Gibson there then, I don't think. So, all right. So my number 5, I was struggling thinking. So I thought I'd throw a little cheesy movie in there, but I know we both watch it many a times. And this could have derailed. It could have some careers. Actors that played high school kids that were in their 30s. What if Grease was not a hit? You don't get John Travolta, you don't get Olivia Newton-John, you don't get the rest of those people.
You don't. The Bee Gees fail.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't think of that.
All right, you're number 4.
Which is funny you bring up John Travolta because my number 4 has John Travolta in it, not Grease. But I had no clue, and this is the thing that threw me for a loop, that when you find out that Tom Hanks wasn't originally cast as Forrest Gump,
I do recall that.
John Travolta was. Forrest Gump isn't up. I honestly believe Forrest Gump isn't up for any awards. I don't think John Travolta could have played Forrest Gump at all. It just blows my mind that was a thought, that was even a possibility.
Yeah, no kidding. I think when I was doing the trivia show, I think that was one of my questions on who would have played or something, and I was doing research and saw John Travolta had a chance to be Forrest Gump. It's just like, wow, really? Wow.
Yeah.
So for me, worked in plenty of video stores, and I know people rented these movies quite a bit. Never really got the kick of them. I think they started coming out in the 70s, early 80s, kind of revamped when people started watching them again. Not sure if they could be made now, but what if they were? The Mighty Python series. could that have been made now? I mean, would it have been as popular? From what I've heard, no. I mean, so
And the funny thing is, Netflix does Monty Python's Flying Circus. They've got a lot of the Monty Python stuff on now.
yep.
I don't think so. I think between Monty Python and Mel Brooks, I don't think they get. I think they get canceled in a quickness.
Yep. All right, you're number where are we at 3? No, you're number you're number 3.
Number
right?
3. I legitimately got scared when I saw this one. Again, this is another one I did not know. When you think of Tim Burton's Batman and you think of the Joker, you think of Jack Nicholson.
Yep.
Most people don't realize that he was believed either the second or third choice for the Joker. And everybody looks at it as being one of the iconic roles that Jack Nicholson's ever done outside of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Terms of Endearment and all the other stuff that he has done. But to find out that John Lithgow was what Tim Burton originally wanted for the Joker, the guy who was the father in Third Rock from the Sun, the father who was in Harry and the Hendersons Yep, he was originally used as the Joker. And a little side note about John Lithgow, when they did the radio show for Empire Strikes Back, John Lithgow was the voice of Yoda.
Wow.
Yep. Just ruins your world perspective. Absolutely destroys it.
I can't see him being the Joker.
I couldn't either.
Wow. So, moving on to my number 3. This came up either last week's show or the show before because it was the guy's birthday. I think it was last week's show. And for him to be famous, he had to write his own movie. What if Rocky 1 failed?
I've been so mad.
I don't think. I mean, do we get Sly Stallone? I mean,
no.
He was having a hard time already. So
we don't get Rambo. We don't get Cobra. We don't get Throw Mama from the Train. Okay, we might have been okay without that one. But we don't get Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, we don't get what's the arm wrestling movie?
That Over the Top is awesome. I don't care.
Over the Top is awesome, but we don't get Stallone in that. I mean,
we don't get that. It's terrible.
Yeah. I think you brought it up last week that he had to write his own movie to become famous, and it worked. What if it didn't?
Yep.
All right, you're number 2.
This is the only one of the list that I knew beforehand, so I'm like, okay, that's cool. But when I first heard this, and I heard it on the Graham Norton show, and because Graham Norton asks this actor, I heard you were up for the role of Neo in The Matrix. And he says, yeah, and I turned it down because he was getting ready to do something else, and I can't remember what it was. He read it, and he didn't like the script. He thought it was too silly or something. And to realize, and then he went and saw Keanu Reeves as Neo, and he said, oh, yeah, I'd have screwed this up. I'd have completely screwed this up. But the question remains, what if Will Smith hadn't turned down the role of Neo in The Matrix?
Wow. Will Smith was hot back then, too. I mean,
yes, he was.
I mean, we probably don't get Keanu Reeves in a lot of movies. I know he was in Bill and Ted's. I don't know. I mean, that's. I mean, we probably don't get. We don't get the research.
We don't get the research. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
So if Will Smith did that movie, we don't get what? Men in Black? We don't get.
I think it was because of Men in Black. I think it was because of Men in Black that he didn't do Neo. He didn't do Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good one. So here's one. My number 2. We grew up with these movies. They did them 789 first. Now considered 789. But what if they did Star Wars from Phantom Menace back in the 70s when they did 6 or whatever and did them in order? I mean, think about the technology that 789 would have got now, or 678 or whatever. I mean, the technology that would have been amazing, but
oh yeah, I to be honest with when it comes to Star Wars, and this is, and yeah, at the time, and Lucas has made this comment a lot of times, saying if we don't make our own technology, Star Wars doesn't go forward.
Yep, exactly.
I think starting with a Phantom Menace would have been this is a personal opinion. I think it might be the same opinion through many Star Wars fans.
Oh yeah.
But I think the reason why Star Wars succeeded so much was because of a character. It's Star Wars, the first one, A New Hope. I think that succeeded so much was because of a character that was on screen for 11 minutes. And considered the greatest villain in movie cinematic history. I think if Darth Vader isn't right away in the series, it doesn't work. Then we don't get 1, 2, 3. We don't get 6. We don't get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If it isn't for somebody as imposing as Vader was, I think we're dead in the water.
Yep. No, you're exactly right. All right, you're number 1.
I love how we brought it back in our history. You talked about the Titanic. So I figured why not bring it up again? And because of this one role, we get this actress, and now this actress seems like she seems to be everywhere. And we're not talking about Leonardo DiCaprio because at that point Leo had been just about everywhere to begin with. And actually,
talk about Leo.
Well, the funny thing is, and I didn't realize this, and it's kind of a little caveat to mine, is that Matthew McConaughey wanted the Leonardo DiCaprio role. Okay, I get that. I understand that. But the funny thing is that when I realized that if it wasn't not for Leonardo DiCaprio, if it wasn't for Kate Winslet, I don't think Titanic is as big as it's supposed to be. And when you realize that Gwyneth Paltrow turned down the role initially, I think at that point, I don't think it succeeds. I think the acting skills that Kate Winslet gave to Rose in Titanic, and I've seen it in parts, in whole, but I don't think Titanic succeeds unless you have the chemistry that happens between Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, because they are like best friends with each other outside of Leonardo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire. But I think because they have this absolute admiration and love for each other as friends and as actors, I don't think Titanic succeeds.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, and then we don't get Leo's big ego and thinks he's all that, and I start hating him. I mean, not that he cares, but all right. My number 1, I know it's a movie we've seen many times. It's better, definitely not uncut, because you miss out a lot of parts on it. But if it was made today, it would not be that way. And that's Blazing Saddles. Oh my God. You do not get Blazing Saddles, the classic, today. You would probably make that in the 90s, but probably about 2005-ish to now, you don't make that movie.
Honestly, I think anything that Mel Brooks did before Spaceballs, if you were to remake it now, I think it dies. I think it dies on the launch pad.
Yep, exactly. You're 100% right on that. All right, so we're still holding on to that Oakland A's record. I mean, we're still holding there. We've all got 2. I mean, we got 2 sports. We could have maybe done a half. I mean, because kind of had some tied in together. So let's move into some wrestling. We're big wrestling fans, of course. Tonight,
this one, I think we've got a shot at least. Maybe 2, maybe 3.
Possibly. Yep. But tune in to C2C because Tuesday Night Mania or Tuesday Night Between the Ropes. Not tonight. Typically, it is after our shows, but we're on Monday today. So, all right, let's go with you started, so I'll start. My number 5, we've talked about this plenty of times on Between the Ropes. I know me and Tim's talked about it. Another guy lost too soon because he did a certain stunt that, according to his wife, that she had worries about it. He said, no, everything's fine. We got professionals. Something happened on live TV during a pay-per-view. What would have happened if Owen Hart would not have done that stunt? Or, I mean, let's just say lived it. What kind of career Owen Hart would have had?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
And
I was lucky enough to have seen him the year before.
Yeah.
In Milwaukee at Over the Edge.
Yep.
And to me, I didn't realize at the time that it was going to be the last time I saw him. It's a weird feeling, man. Just to
the thing is my mom called me that next day. She's like, "Did you want to pay for you?" I was like, "No, I think I worked that night." And she's like, "Well, a wrestler did." I'm like, "Which one?" She's like, "Oh, the guy that wore the vest." I'm like, "Wore the vest? Well, that's Austin. That no way." And then I saw the news reports and saw it was Owen Hart. I'm just like, "Oh, yeah, that was tough." Yeah. So you're number 5.
You and I, we the reason why we're doing this is because we loved wrestling. We grew up at a time where competition is good, and you see, and now for some reason, and I absolutely love it that AEW does this with New Japan. I think it's an amazing thing. But WWF, WWE considers this 2-word statement as a swear word. I think would have been brilliant during the Monday Night Wars if they would have done this. What if the WWE were to do a Forbidden Door during the Attitude Era?
Yeah, a lot of people were talking about it. I mean, before WWE or WWF at the time became big, a lot of territories did those. They did intergender promotion or intertwined promotions. I mean, I know AWA did a lot with the Texas promotion with the Von Erichs and stuff. I mean, so, yeah. So, well, that kind of goes into my number 4 a little bit. We talked about a little bit in previous shows, and Bischoff supposedly was in a meeting or in the ring, setting up, getting something ready. What if that garage door opened when DX was pounding on it? What do we have going on there? I mean,
exactly.
Like you said, the Attitude Era, that was it. Monday Night Wars. DX invades WCW, tries to get in.
Yep. It blows my mind, and I'm like, and Bischoff's one of those guys. Bischoff's got that ego.
At that time, he did.
Oh, he would have loved it. He would have opened it up. He would have, yeah.
He has said in interviews that he would have opened it up, but if that happened today, there's no way he would have done it. He would have opened up. But yeah, you're number 4.
It's funny how we come back to the Attitude Era, and it's amazing. But because wrestling at the time, the shows were so amazing that we can do a lot of what ifs at this point. And the funny thing is, we keep bringing up Bischoff, and Bischoff at the time was one of those guys. If many people who know about the Monday Night Wars, especially near the tail end of the days of WCW, was trying to get a conglomerate of people to buy WCW.
Nope.
And I think it would have been amazing to see. I think it would have been cool to see. I think Bischoff would have done an amazing job. But what happens if Vince did not buy WCW?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And they said that the downside of WCW was getting all those, wasn't the fact of getting all the big names. It was getting the big names, the big money to let them run let them do it. But yeah, Vince doing it. And even to turn off of that one, because I didn't have that one on there, but what if they actually let Shane run WCW as part of their own company? I mean,
That might have been good. I
yeah,
think
exactly. Exactly. So my number 3, we probably ain't talking wrestling today the way it is. If Vince Sr. stuck to his grounds and told Vince Jr. to WrestleMania 1 was not happening, we're not talking wrestling.
No, we're not.
And even if it failed, I mean, that was the biggest thing that brought music, that brought entertainment into wrestling. I mean, so yeah, we're probably not talking wrestling if WrestleMania doesn't happen or is a fail.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're number 3.
My number 3. Okay, we've heard it twice already. This show, we're going to hear it a third time.
Yes.
It's not C2C unless we're sniping other people's things. What if security had opened the door to let DX in? It's to me, it just boggles my mind. And it's funny is when you listen to the WWF, you listen to DX going, "Oh, they'd have never done it," and you put split screen and you'd have followed up the response with Bischoff saying, "Oh yeah, I'd open the damn doors."
Yep.
It's amazing.
Yep. And they had and WCW was ready too. And like you said, security said no, and I think Nash Hall, some of the other big guys were sitting there behind the doors. They heard them.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely one. Number 3, not that we want to talk more about deaths and stuff, but this was part of a storyline which got scrapped because of another serious death issue with Chris Benoit. What if it did happen and they went with the storyline of Vince blowing up in the car?
Oh.
There was many rumors that Vince was going to come back in a disguise and be Vince's brother. He was just going to be written off TV forever. But yeah, there's many storylines. But of course, with the tragic news of Benoit, they scrapped that storyline.
I missed that one. That was a good one. I forget. That's a great one.
Yeah. You're number 2.
I think for the first time, I am going to snipe one of yours.
Okay.
I think my number 2. Everybody remembers the NWO. Everybody remembers the 3 original members of the NWO.
Yep.
But the third one wasn't supposed to be who that was. Because originally it was supposed to be Sting.
Wow.
What if Sting had accepted the role of the Hulk Hogan in the NWO?
Well, we'll just get right into it. That is my number 1. Depending on, there's been documentaries on this, interviews. Hogan, Sting, Bischoff are the 3 main people. It was pitched to Hogan. He said he'd think about it. Then supposedly Bischoff pitched it to Sting. He kind of was thinking about it, and it's been documented. Hall and Nash did not know which way they were going to go. The ref involved didn't know. Luger, Savage didn't know.
Yeah.
Sting at the time didn't know. They had it set up, and I don't even know if they knew Hogan was in the building at the time.
They knew Hogan was in the building because Hogan was supposed to be the third man. Was supposed to be the third man in the match.
Yeah. So they didn't know if Hogan was going to go through with it. Hogan debated. Sting denies it. Sting said there was never talk of him being the NWO third man. But just take the Hogan factor out of it. Anybody else to be that third man, I don't think NWO is as successful as it was.
I think if the only other person he could have been
Savage.
Savage. I think Savage.
For NWO to happen, you have to have that WWF guy.
Right. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, okay, Flair was over in WWF for a little bit. I don't think that would have worked. Beefcake definitely wouldn't have worked. Savage would have been the next guy. Hart maybe, because Hart came after, I think. But
Bret came in
unless they would have pulled a Swerve, HBK was thinking about jumping ship, but decided not to. So I mean, it would have had to be WWF guy, but yeah,
Right.
Hogan. What if Hogan wasn't the leader of the NWO? I don't think it's unless it's another big name. Sting was a possibility. I don't think it would have been as successful as it was without Hogan.
Right. Right.
So
exactly.
yeah, you did get me. That was my number one. So you're number one.
That's all right. You sniped me earlier.
Oh yeah.
I think you sniped me. I want to say you're number 5. Yeah, I truthfully think if Owen Hart hasn't died, I think the face of the WWF at the time would have been a whole lot different. That's the one, and no pun intended. But my heart hurt after that one. That one was such a. It was a kick in the balls as it was. It just sucked.
Yeah. And the thing is, watching the clips, granted they don't show it. I think I've seen one video which I believe has been taken down now of the incident where you see Hart falling.
I've never seen it.
I believe, at least a still shot possibly. But
right.
Well, when they come back and you see the reaction of
Jim Ross,
Jerry Lawler, and I think Hart and I think Brett was over at WCW at the time. Him getting the call.
Brett was on an airplane.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And these guys travel 300 some odd days a year with each other. This is family to them, and just to see that happen,
right?
For the fans that were there, I mean, it had to be just a shocker and stuff like that.
And let's add on this one. Why don't we add one more? What if?
Okay, go ahead.
What if Vince decided not to run the rest of the show?
Oh, wow, that is.
I think he hurt. I think he hurt a lot of people in the wrestling business. I think he hurt a lot of the fans. Granted, a lot of the fans in the arena, in Kemper Arena in Missouri, in St. Louis, I believe, or is it Kansas City? It doesn't matter. Yeah. But I think if they announce that in the arena, I think they cancel the show. I think they cancel the rest of the show. But since they didn't do that, which I thought was a terrible idea, you announce it to everybody who's watching on pay-per-view. So basically, we paid to hear Owen Hart dies.
Yeah.
And then nobody wants to go on. At this point, you're basically telling people and everybody in the backstage knew that Owen was dead.
Yeah.
And you're basically telling them the show must go on. That doesn't happen.
Yeah,
that's a terrible idea. I think Vince should have canceled the rest of that show.
Well, the thing is like you said, terrible idea. But then again, the way media is now, that happens now and you cancel the show. People are like, well, the wrestler would have wanted him to go on, or the actor would have wanted to go on. Now you got to do all the paperwork for refunds and stuff. You guys should just let it go out. We're already there. So it's double. Back then, I think a lot of people would have understood. Yeah, we're not doing the show today. Yeah. Today, people wouldn't have understood.
Yep.
So absolutely. That's we got three. We got three in that category. So we're getting back up to double A ball there. So let's finish up. We are over time, but hey, who cares? All right.
Yeah.
Yes. July. We just saw a couple days ago Tony Bennett passing away. So sorry for his fans. Thinking about him and his family. So let's get into it. Let's start with your number 5. I'd say we got one. We might have a couple. There was so many people to choose from. I know we left people off. You're going to say, how can you pick this guy over that? I get it. We say it every time. It's a list. We're just throwing out topics. So let's go with number 5.
You brought up, and he's not on my list. You brought up Tony Bennett, and again, we're wrestling fans. I don't know. He's not on my list. This is going to be my honorable mention because he passed away, and we've watched him wrestling, and that's Darren Drozdoff.
Yep. Oh,
To
I
see
forgot
that
about him. Yeah, that was a small.
to see he had passed away after, again, a botched spot in WWF back in the day because of D'Lo Brown.
No, what was it? D'Lo Brown?
Yeah, it was D'Lo Brown.
It was okay.
He-
I was going to say I thought it was Owen Hart, but he had
No,
a
it was
botch out with
Owen
Stone
Hart.
Cold.
Owen Hart's is Steve Austin.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, that to see that he had made it this far after having a neck injury is still it's a miracle in itself. But my number 5, to me, we don't condone suicide. I'm going to put that out there right now. I've been lucky enough to be by his house, and it's funny that they just had a lookalike contest at his home in Key West. Proud to me, one of the greatest American writers to ever put pen to paper, and that's Ernest Hemingway. Passed away on July 2nd, 1961. 61.
All right. My number 5 in the baseball world, big business guy. You either love him or you hate him, and especially if you're not a fan of the team, you hated him because all he did was spend money. But as a business guy, that's what you do to make your business better. You can't argue it. And that's the former owner of the hated New York Yankees. That's George Steinbrenner.
Yeah, I saw that. I see that one. I've never put Steinbrenner on my list. Unless I had
won't put him on there.
Yeah, it's
all right. You're number 4.
To me, one of the best actors, one of the greater actors, that especially back in the day, back in the 50s and the 60s. If it wasn't for this man, I don't think one of the greatest Christmas movies of all time never happens. It's a Wonderful Life. He's done everything from comedy to drama to I believe he's even done musicals. Jim Carrey does actually my number 4 and number 3, Jim Carrey does amazing impersonations of, but my number 4, because of It's a Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart passed away in July 2nd, 1997. You're all going to start thinking that I just went the first couple days and just went, that's not it.
No, we could every year we do, or every month we do these lists. So we could do a whole episode just on ranking deaths. As much as some people don't like talking about it. I mean, you guys still respect them.
Yep.
My number 4 backstage, I kind of talked a little bit that this was a kind of an emotional one for me, because I was living with my aunt at the time, and she comes home. I'm watching TV, watching the story of this, breaking news. My aunt opens up the door. She goes, "Brandon, did you hear who died today?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm watching the news now." And she's like, "No, Grandma Barr passed away." I'm like, "What?" So on the same day that family friend Grandma Barr passed away, it was the same day that JFK Jr. passed away in a plane accident. So, yeah. So that's my number.
I remember that.
I
remember the JFK Jr. one because the funny thing is it happened on July 16th, and I don't hear the news on my birthday. So I was like, "Oh, please!" And I'm literally praying. I'm literally praying to God at that point, going, "Please die before 12 o'clock. I don't need JFK Jr. on my birthday. I don't need it." I got lucky enough and got Walter Cronkite years later. But then again, I've got the Romanoff family on my birthday too. So we don't Anastasia Romanoff and Tsar Nicholas, but they're not on my list. So let's
number 3.
I'm staying with the acting field.
Okay.
And I'm going to say July 1st, 2004, but that's the date that we're going to say probably one of the greatest actors of all time. I literally, when I saw this list, saw this name, and we were doing July, he kind of had to be done. He was in one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm a big fan of On the Waterfront. Huge. And the funny thing is, his co-actor in that movie, Carl Malden, also died in July. But everybody remembers My Number 3. But he was also in A Streetcar Named Desire. He was Don Corleone in The Godfather. He was in Apocalypse Now. He worked with Johnny Depp in Don Juan DeMarco. And that's the one and only great Marlon Brando.
Oh yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, you're right on there. My number 3, we're gonna go back to the musicians for a little bit. Backstage, I was talking to Tim about this, and not that I had him on my list, but Jimmy Morrison also passed in July. I could have used him twice, but I'll go another musician, probably one of the smoothest voices. Guys want to be him, girls want to be with them, and that's Luther Vandross.
I saw that one.
Yeah.
I saw that one so much too. And they died. I think Jim Morrison, and the weird thing is, I think Jim Morrison and Luther Vandross died on the same day, just years apart.
Yeah, I think it was. All right, you're number 2.
All right. So, as Brandon likes to point out, I like to do a lot of historical things. And when I saw these, my number 2 and my number 1, I had to put them on. I do my wife a very great service because this is one of her favorite paintings. I've been lucky enough to see one of his paintings. She's been lucky enough to see plenty of his paintings, and she's going to go when she goes to Paris. I told her she needs to give me a picture of a couple more of his paintings. But in July 29th, 1890, there's a great Dutch painter who no longer has his ear, and if I'm not mistaken, there's a book on my shelf back here. I'm serious. This is how crazy this is. Like I said, my wife is a fan. July 29th, 1890 is the death date of Vincent van Gogh.
I did see that one and thought I'd throw them on the list. Yeah. So my number 2, I thought I wrote down what year or what president he was. And that's Ulysses S. Grant.
Did see that one.
Yeah.
I did see that.
I thought that's where we would hit. I thought we did on that one. So, all right, you're number 1.
My number 1. It's again history for me. When we listen, when we talk about composers of classical music, there's Brahms, there's Mozart, and then there's Johann Sebastian Bach. Johann Sebastian Bach died July 28th, 1750. To me, I think, again, I don't think we have the music we have today. I don't think we have the composers that write soundtracks that have the movements like a Brahms, like a Bach, like a Mozart, like a Beethoven, if we don't have these guys. So, yeah, Bach is my number 1.
Oh, that's a good one. For me, my number 1, we're going to end it in baseball. I think his career was cut short. Well, he missed some years due to the war, I believe. He's the last one to hit over 400 in a season. Coming out in the Boston All-Star game to be represented as one of the top 100 greatest baseball players of all time, I believe, in the card, and just seeing everybody swarm to him to shake his hand and stuff. And that's Mr. Ted Williams.
If I'm not mistaken, his last hit in his career was a home run too, wasn't it?
It wouldn't shock me.
And I think he needed a hit to go over that season to go over 400. He needed a hit and he hit a home run or something.
Yeah, I think on the last at bat of that season he needed a hit to get 400.
Right.
So that's that's our show for today. We did go over almost a half hour, one of our longest shows, but hey, it's one of those fun ones. We may look into doing more of these what if shows. As Tim always says, if you guys got ideas, you watch this on replay, shoot it out there. What you want to see. So, Tim, your final thoughts.
I think I said this backstage. I think this is one of those ones I was thinking when I was doing the homework going, why haven't we done this before? Why did it take us 6 months, 7 months into this show that we've done probably one of the bigger ones. This is, to be honest, I think the what if episodes would be a great show to do if we ever do our mega shows again. I think the what ifs it creates such a great conversation piece.
Yep, exactly. So, with that being said, keep tuning in to C2C all week long. Tuesday Mania. You'll see myself and Tim back on deck this week. Also premiering is our 2023 season of Morning Tailgate with myself, Tim, Crispy Bacon, mess around, and who knows, we might have a special guest or two pop on. But check that out.
Ryan Reynolds will be here. No, he won't.
Yeah. But check that out this Sunday, 10 o'clock Central. I don't know what that's over at Tim's neck of the woods.
5 o'clock Central. That's what time is it Central? 10 o'clock Central?
10 a.m. Central. So
that's 9 a.m. Central. Holy smokes,
man.
10. Didn't do math. It's 4 o'clock.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's 4 o'clock.
We'll start talking about new, old faces and new places and stuff like that. We start getting ready for the NFL season. Preseason just right around the corner. And if you guys haven't watched ESPN or follow our pages, we all know that the WNFL, the Women's Professional League, just wrapped up their season this weekend in Canton, Ohio, crowning some new champions. So good congrats to them, because we are the home of the Oregon Cougars Women's Professional Team. So, with that being said, Tim, enjoy doing the show with you. We'll see everybody next Tuesday on Deck. Have a good one.